What's up, guys and gals of the movement world? It's Sean Mishka, the Movement Miyagi, coming to you once again on behalf of Football Beyond the Stats in our Movement Play of the Week this week for Week 6 of the 2024 National Football League season. Now, if you followed my work here at Football Beyond the Stats and you've watched some of my Movement Plays of the Week before, you will know that my favorite position on an American football field is the running back position, and that's for numerous different reasons. I guess I would probably throw punt returners, and now with the new dynamic kickoff kick returners in there in the mix as well. But because of the nature of the problems that these players face across situations and across conditions and how they're expected to move, that usually is something that floats my boat, especially to get into the nuances and intricacies of how those running backs solve problems. Now, I say all that to say this: Najee Harris, who we're going to feature today on our movement play of the week for week 6, isn't necessarily my style of mover at the running back position. And I say he's not my style, but really what it is that I've kind of aspire to and chase is guys who will go ghost on defenders. They will usually layer together moves upon moves and sequence them together, oftentimes being really perceptually connected to the layers of movement problems and using those layers in the perceptual pickup to channel how it is that they act at this immediate moment to string movements together, to string movement solutions together based on the way that they're facing the problems. But Najee Harris is a guy who runs downhill more often than not, tries to aim to solve many problems with a physical mindedness first, organizing a strength or power strategy or solution, often bulldozing guys, truck sticking guys, using his stiff arm as a feeler. He gets really tunnel vision and he looks to do things to that immediate defender. And he faces that what is head on over and over and over again, sometimes like a battering ram to a certain degree. Now, of course, he takes on many of these problems with a physical solution or strategy. Of course, he's 6'1, 232 pounds. So, of course, he might have that as part of his form of life. So, he's not always taking in the landscape of opportunities, more so in his periphery to the right and to the left, or then layered in a deeper fashion. So, when I say that he's not my style, I usually like guys who are maybe a little bit more evasive first and foremost, because I know that at the running back position, that also usually equates to longevity and versatility for that matter in today's NFL. I'm saying all that, but I'm throwing it out the window because Najee Harris on Sunday against the Las Vegas Raiders showed over and over again the true growth and abundance within his movement strategies and toolbox. Now, Najee has before at Alabama, as well as then in his first number of years within the league, shown this abundance in spurts of it. We've seen him hurdle guys. We've seen him spin. We've seen him use that stiff arm to perfection to be authentic and to be adaptable with it. But he's often lacked this skilled attunement and really opening up the toolbox, if you will, and facing all movement problems with this open and responsive way. However, on Sunday, we did see some of that from him. We did see that growth and a little bit of evolution within his skill set, and we saw it problem to problem. Doesn't mean that there's not more meat on the bone. There certainly is for him to get even more creative, but we saw more of it. And we're going to see it in a number of plays here today. One of the things that I want to show you right off the bat, and this isn't necessarily going to be a featured play, but I want you to look at the way that Najee Harris is solving this respective problem, kind of illustrating that which what I just talked about, which is him head down, solving the problem. This tunnel gets really narrow, and he's just going to face whatever is right there in the what is. And he'll face that and he'll face it head on. Sometimes trying to go north and south, cloud of dust if it happens to be, but trying to get behind and running behind his pads. It's what we see him right here hit holes and hit them hard, not necessarily looking to be open and responsive and adaptable. But of course, you're like, Sean, what in the hell? This here at Football Beyond the Stats in our problem solver paradigm is oriented around finding the most functional fit to the nature and the nuances of the problem. And in that functional fit, functionality is really about practicality, usefulness, resourcefulness in this case. Does the solution fit the problem? And the answer, of course, is it is. And it does, right? It is fitting and it does fit. And he ends up with, I don't know, 15 yards to show for it, right? Yeah, he took a lot of contact, and a lot of these yards were after contact, and he's carrying dudes along with him. This physicality, you can see him bringing everything that he has. And just because it's not Sean Mishka's style, it isn't about the movement Miyagi, it's about Najee Harris finding his fit to the problems. That's what being the creative, authentic, expressive individual as a mover is in a round and about. So I want to continue to feature that, but I also want to show you a few slices where we saw Najee bring a little something, a little bit more sauce and a little bit more flavor. Now, again, I want to give credit where credit's due. He has done this in the past in spurts, but there's been some times where he's left some things out there because he misses the nature of the problem. Remember, dexterity. Nikolai Bernstein, 96 in this case, dexterity in its development, but Bernstein died in 67. So this was obviously much before this time when he actually wrote it and said it. It was only published at that time. Dexterity, the ability to solve any emerging movement problem in any situation, in any condition. So across situations and across conditions, that inside run that we just saw now is going to move into a right off tackle. So we're going to go off tackle to the right. Obviously, Najee, the one thing that he has because of his abundance, it does allow him to be somewhat versatile across situations. That strength power oriented problem, no worries. Najee Harris has a solution to it. An evasive 1v1 situation, Najee Harris has a strategy and a solution to it. We're going to show the meat on the bone here a little bit here as well. It's something that I would nudge him to do, especially when he gets to the second and the third level here and gets 1v1 with another defender. But let's watch it one more time at 100% speed here. Leaves what would be number 18, I believe, standing, and obviously completely shook. Gives them the little shake and bake. And that's what we do see from Najee Harris occasionally. And I would just like to see it more and more and more. But let's look into what it is that led Najee to surf this wave in this fashion. Okay. And then let's think about what we might be able to do to assist the channeling or facilitation of said solution or the organization of it. Okay. Like I mentioned before, our analysis is only so good if it doesn't actually translate into what we might do in practice design. So this time, instead of looking for contact and looking for the physical strategy and solution first, Najee finds the opening not only for this hole, right? Because that hole, as you guys can tell, we got to get the telestrator out at some point here. This hole and where Najee's going to go he's open right from the start. So he's going to press this a bit and then look to bounce, right? So press and then bounce. What that does, obviously, that's going to draw some of these guys in just a little bit more because Najee is used to going north and south, okay? And less east and west, left and right, okay? Hopefully that makes some sense. So he's pulling guys in, bringing the defense to him, okay, bringing the defenders to him, so it puts more guys in a disadvantageous position. One individual who is in a disadvantageous position right here is number 18. He realizes right off the bat, it's going to be 22 and me really quickly, right? Instead of 23 and me, it's 22 and me with Najee Harris in the open field in this scenario and situation. The one thing that we have when we talk about that style of mover that Sean adheres to, that I look to. We think about the Christian McCaffreys. We think about the Nick Chubbs. We think about the Jonathan Taylors, a couple of guys who've won my mover of the year, two of those three in the past. We think about Saquon Barkley at his peak in his rookie year, 2018. What you see is guys setting guys up, okay, guys being the ball carriers, setting the other guys, defenders, up, especially in these 1v1 scenarios and situations, with what they might be able to do based on what lies to the right and to the left and beyond. We talk a lot about that here. Well, when this guy being number 18, doesn't exactly know what's happening to the right and to the left as much because he's focused and fixated on 22. When this opens up, 22, Najee Harris is going to be able to zero in on this more. But again, Najee gets right here, really tunnel visioned. In a way, I've been critical of a Saquon Barkley, even at his best. So connected to that one guy, so connected to that local slice, that immediate defender in this immediate movement problem. In this case, it's going to work to Najee's benefit rather, because it's really only about this guy. He knows that he has a lot of space out here if he wants it, right? This is really the only guy to beat. But what Najee does is he uses key informational variables. What might that be in this case based on what we've researched, what we've talked about here? Key informational variables in these 1v1 scenarios and situations, which has been highlighted by research. Number one, first and foremost, whether it's American football, across situations and across contexts, running back and defender, okay? Even like a defensive end and an offensive tackle or left tackle or right tackle, right? Interpersonal distance, highly informative, not only at this moment, but as it goes in an unfolding, constantly dynamic way, how it's going to change. And at the same time, guys and gals, it's not just about that interpersonal distance. Like Najee might be able to act right now and act decisively, but this interpersonal distance isn't going to afford him the ability to go right or left, as well as if he closes that interpersonal distance. And those players who have more attunement to that interpersonal distance will keep their options open for longer. Okay. They might be able to make somebody miss if they're very far away and give them a little shimmy, a shake to freeze that guy. It might be as this closes in and as they get tighter and come to one another, he's able to continue to read and recognize, ultimately perceive and detect that information about how he can act to go left or right. You might think I'm making a lot of this, but there's other informational variables here that he's going to look to pick up. What might those be, and what will the more attuned and sensitive person at this respective position, running back position, or on the flip side, remember problem solution dynamics, changing states of organization is a mutual reciprocal relationship. Number 18, what might he be taking in? He's taking an interpersonal distance as well, but he's looking at not biting in this case, on feints and fakes, deceptive type of actions, changes in tempo and rhythm, being really sensitive to velocity values. How fast am I moving in relation to how fast might the opponent be moving? Another thing that we might be able to think about here is posture, kinematics. Okay. How is the individual positioned? That tells me something about this movement problem solving story for them. If you're Najee Harris, Najee, in this case, or the more skilled performer, the running backs that I would work with, that I would be talking about, is really going to be, let me get my, I've got too many drawings going on at the same time. So he could be looking, yes, at interpersonal distance, but he could be looking at center of mass height. Okay. How does this afford this guy to move? He could be literally looking at how this person's feet are positioned and what might it afford him to do at this moment. And guys and gals, he's not just taking a snapshot, but instead, because movement problem solving is a dynamically unfolding act, He wants to see how this might be changing and updating in an online fashion. Remember, affordances are individual, meaning for Najee, with Najee, that animal specific, okay, that person specific, but also frame dependent. When they are taking it in and what it might mean to them for their opportunities to act. Okay, let's watch it go another step forward. Okay, interpersonal distance change. We see some behaviors change from Najee Harris. Okay, yes, we're at 50% speed, but let's watch it again unfold and see how it changes. Okay, long interpersonal distance. He's just zeroed in on him. Okay, now he gets that guy to break. Okay, you see him right here. He's already starting to break, starting to lower his center of gravity, get sitting back onto his hips a bit. Okay, he's in his heels, full foot. Okay, Najee gets a little hesitation from him. How does Najee get a little hesitation from him? He deceives to act. But in that deception, he's going to take in the information about how that guy's moving. Okay. Now you see this individual lean and the highly attuned, highly intentional mover, Najee Harris, in this case, props to him. I said he wasn't my style, but on this day, acting highly dexterous. He sees this guy lean this way. He leans to his left. Najee knows that's just enough for him to have this foot thrown into the ground, right foot. Notice he's keeping it open. It could just as easily put this left foot down and go back this way, right? But instead, he takes this one, throws it down in the ground, is ready to jab step if he needs to go right, left, back to right if he needs to. But because he has this opening, and he probably can feel Max Crosby hitting the deck here, probably can feel him, whether he's thinking that or not. He then opens up with that power cut off of his outside foot to come right here, right? And so it may seem like, Sean, you're making a lot of this one jab step, this one frozen moment for one defender in Najee Harris. But you see it there unfold, and he looks back. We see him look back to admire his work. Like, he turns back and turns around. Did I just do that? Like, look at 18, slipping and sliding on skates, and Najee turns back and looks at him. Highly sensitive, highly attuned stuff. And then he gets his head back up to scan and get on a swivel. Okay. Admiring the work of Najee Harris here before we move on. Let's really think about that. Watch it unfold at the 50% speed. Watch it happen here. And I could watch this obviously on a reel over and over again. But what happens now? Here's where I'd like to see a Najee Harris change the situations, or as the situation changes. Okay, you see it unfold here. You move from one local movement problem to the next. String movement solutions together to fit the constantly unfolding problem. Context, conditioned, coupling, variability. How we solve one problem will feed into what the next problem may afford us. And this is where I think Najee Harris could stand from the film I've seen of him and from him. And now I would dive deeper if he and I were going to work together in this way. Here we see him use no way as the way and face a different movement problem under a different context. Still 1v1. Watch. Okay. It's still technically a 1v1 slice, depending on how we cut it, right? Now, we know we got some chasers coming behind. Like, if we're going to stamp these guys and try to think about, I'm not going to hurt them. I don't like the Raiders that much. I don't have the player currently on them. Okay. We see some chasers. This is technically more than a 1v1 slice or snippet or problem, right? But probably for Najee Harris at this moment, it is about 1v1. And it's about how the behaviors of a oneself interact with the behaviors of another. Okay. Should be pretty self-explanatory there. So what types of informational variables might inform Najee Harris here in this 1v1 slice as to how he could potentially move and act? Ultimately, we see him reach in his bag, but come out with the strategy and solution that he often will. I'm going to get as much yardage as I can, and then I'm going to lower my shoulder. I'm going to take this guy for a ride as far as I can. Maybe I'll use my stiff arm. Maybe I'll use my sit, dip, and duck and into the guy, but I'm probably not going to make a miss when it involves higher speeds. We saw him do it a little bit more in traffic before. I would have liked to see him do it more here. Now I'm nitpicking, right? But that's what we do here at Football Beyond the Stats, our movement play of the week. Look, like he knows that he's not going to beat this guy based on speed. So he's going to get as much as he can and then take the guy along with this strength or power oriented strategy, which ultimately he does very, very well, has tremendous balance, dynamic balance, but also contact balance, as we saw in that first play. He bounces off of guys, he changes his levels well, he contorts his body well to do these things. All qualities, all characteristics that are tremendous for a lead running back to have. Okay, a bell cow running back to have. But I would have liked to see Najee here now. In this case, like if you're not going to beat him based on speed, and you're not, because that's a defensive back, and Najee just doesn't have that breakaway type of speed at the national level, football league level, right? Let's think back to the informational variables. We've already began to talk about it. Okay. Interpersonal distance, that's constantly changing. We can't even see the guy yet. Okay. Posture, kinematics, bearing angle, relative velocity values. Okay. What's happening to the left and to the right if Najee wants to be attuned and sensitive to it? But oftentimes he's not. He shows his cards. Hey, I'm just going to get as much as I can here. Yeah, I'm probably going to look to be physical with you, defensive back at some point, but I'm okay with that. And now it's like almost too late, right? Like if he would have used a little change in path, even if you look at number seven's behaviors right now, and I'm doing a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas because that's what we should do when we look at this, because we got to think to ourselves, could this have been made better? And I think it could have. Okay. Especially when, yeah, let's look at it right here. Now, I probably would have thought about just a step behind this, but let's think again. Let's look at the path that this guy is on. First, let's look at his posture. Let's look at his kinematics. Where can he go? Okay. And now I know I'm hyper analyzing this, but let's think about it. There's only one place he can go, and that guy is using his strength, speed, to close the distance and close the gap on me if I'm Najee Harris, knowing I don't have that same type of burst or speed, and especially when I'm at third, fourth gear in the second and third level of the defense, particularly outside of the hashes, where there's a lot of green gas and there's a lot more 1v1. And there's really no threats, as long as he would be attuned, coming here. This guy's already on a path that way, but Najee never even turns to really look at him. He's even done looking at this guy. Okay. And so I say all that to say, when I said he's not really my style, sometimes he lacks this type of attunement across the landscape of affordances as he surfs this wave. But remember, this year's theme in riding the wave, it's about finding the authentic fit, letting the problem teach you something about your skill. And that's really what I'm trying to break down here. When he looks at him there, I would have preferred for him to look at him and then get that updated online perceptual pickup, that updated information detection, and then change something about his own behaviors. Maybe it would be tempo, maybe it would be rhythm, maybe it would be looking to deceive, maybe changing, gearing down and gearing back up, which would require this guy to either stop or slow down, not stop, slow down and work through the gears himself, which could have opened up an opportunity to the left and to the right here a little bit more if this guy begins to slow or chop his feet in any way, or if he stays on the horse, okay, meaning he stays going fast to the sideline in this way, he being this defensive back for the Raiders. Look at the path he's on. If you can get him moving even faster, but you show a slight hesitation in it, and it keeps him moving fast, it might open up an opportunity here. And now you might have a different local movement problem that would be able to be solved. Now, I'm not suggesting he's going to come way back here, but as this unfolds dynamically, it's probably more of this path, especially because I don't know if these guys are catching it. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this, or hopefully you can. And now, again, I'm nitpicking and I'm asking a lot of what ifs. But that's what I do with the players I work with, because we can wrap these types of slices or snippets. How would we do so? If I find that Najee Harris behaves this way and I'm working with him, I would set up a movement problem just like this, starting with 1v1. Okay. Hash the sideline. Okay. We've talked about this before. Let's see if I can get some lines out here now. It's just straight lines, no arrows. 1v1, maybe down the hash and then over at the sideline. Obviously, that's off screen, but think about it right here, right? This type of workspace, we could change that, okay? We have guys entering the space. Typically, I'd probably start that at, and I do this, okay? Have a guy start right here and enter the space, and have the guy start right here at 5 yards, enter the space. Sure. And then this guy will behave based in accordance to the behaviors of that guy. Make some sense? Hopefully it does. What we would do then is have some problem variability. The problem variability will bring inherent repetition without repetition for the solver, and he will naturally change his movement strategies and solutions in a big way or in a small way. It could be small and subtle. But now we might educate this player being Najee's, attention, educate the attention and try to channel his perceptual pickup, his information detection, namely about the behaviors of this guy. We would then change where this guy, or maybe both of them, are starting 5 yards apart, starting 7 yards apart, starting 9 yards apart, or maybe even way further. Change which angle they're entering it from. Maybe Najee would enter it. Oh, I no longer have my arrow. Maybe Najee would enter it head up, and this guy would enter at an angle from either the left side or the right side, or head on and head up. Okay. What I'm saying here is what you can do is channel and facilitate a different coordination, control, and organization of both players' movement strategies and solutions at a perceptual, cognitive, and action level. What they're looking at, when they're looking at, what the information means to them, how that leads to a change in intentions and decisions that they make, and ultimately how that might channel this guy's ways of acting differently and ultimately acting more adaptively. And then what do we do? Obviously, hopefully, if you've been here before, we might add a chaser, we might add a chaser, we might add a teammate. Okay. All of a sudden, it can go from a 1v1 slice to maybe a 1v2, Najee, and then two defenders, to a 2v2. You got a teammate entering the space. So Najee himself gets an opportunity to explore and search and scan the landscape for opportunities to act. I think there is more meat on the bone for not only Najee Harris, but many running backs or ball carriers in these types of scenarios and situations. So you don't always got to look to take a guy for a ride. You can learn to look to facilitate or to change your own behaviors to impact and influence and channel the behaviors of others. And that's really what I'm looking for here. Yes, he goes to the shoulder roll. Yes, he goes and puts out the stiff arm to get not only the haptic information, but to keep the guy at bay at that interpersonal distance. But there are sometimes more opportunities for him to act. But that first play, when he puts 18 on a flipping string, is impressive to say the least. When we talk about riding the wave, using no way is the way, what we see from Najee Harris here, he's finding his way. And that way it will be one that ends up on the highlights for all the season to come. I'm going to show this play later in the game. It ends up being a touchdown if you saw the game, even though Pittsburgh's already up by 8. Let's watch it at 100% speed. I'll come back to it then, and we'll watch it sort of its entirety here. Now, across situations, across conditions, now we're talking about a toss to the left side of the offense. Watch some of it kind of enter the mix here, using no way as the way. Find the functional fit to that problem and don't keep yourself to one way of doing or being. But we see Najee Harris' form of life here. Like, he doesn't mind being a little bowling ballish, a little bumper carish, right in there. He doesn't mind knocking off some guys because he's got the contact balance to deal with it. He doesn't mind finding things right up in his face, right up in his grill, and being chaotic around it. And then it isn't so much the speed in the open field, but it's in him and his adaptability in solving it when it gets to him, when it comes to him, when he has to interact with the what is. Okay. He gets a couple glances there. Those glances probably aren't enough to really take it in unless he's this hyper attuned individual. And we've seen some situations where he might not be. He's just adapting, riding the wave in his own way. Again, it might not be my style. It might not be my preferred way of doing or being, but it is the way that Najee Harris does behave. And what we find from him more often than not is that his way is his for a reason. It's what he is connecting to, how he is connecting to it. And for that, I give him credit for. So for Sean Mishka, our movement play of the week, I'm the Movement Miyagi on Football Beyond the Stats. If you like this, hit thumbs up, go like, subscribe, all the stuff. I will see you guys in week 7.